I need to figure out how to go from that shaft to this shaft. I ordered a couple pieces that I might be able to get to work. This was one of them that would slip on here, just like that, and then it would adapt to that size. The splines here don't fit. I actually have a piece that's just like a smooth collar, essentially, that would go on there. I also have this, which would, slide on there, and then this side would go there. And then if I use this, I could actually keep the adjusting function of the steering wheel. Maybe not the telescopic version, but being able to rotate it up and down. So the problem I have right now is the smooth bore on this side will fit into that, but I could not find anything that had the correct splines that would go onto that shaft. So essentially what I'm doing, there was another piece that went on here that I actually took off, which is this, and the splines that I need are in here. So I'm trying to get this out that I'm hoping would slip in here. Maybe I can weld it in place that would have the correct splines that I need, so that way I can connect both sides. One of these are going to have to get cut. I don't know if it's this one or that one. I'm probably going to try to rely on just doing this one, because I could probably get another I don't even know what to call this, a steering assembly, for like $100 versus this shaft from Silvermine. I doubt they sell it separately. I would probably have to buy an entire assembly, and that's over $1,000. So we're gonna try to cut up this as much as we can and not tamper with that. So I'm gonna pop this off and see what I can get out of it. All right, so I got this all torn down. I need to subtract length somewhere. So it's either going to be this shaft or it's going to be this side with this shaft. I think it'll be easier to do this side. This is pushed into this piece and then welded completely all the way around. So we're going to take it over to the lathe, cut this down, separate the two, shorten the shaft, and then we can re-weld everything. I think I might actually use my positioner for this. Might be a pretty good job for it. All right, I don't know if I can get any spare pieces for this if I were to somehow mess this up, so a little bit of a gamble, but I don't have a choice. Here we go. Yep. All right. All right, so that's the shaft at the end of the EPS. We're gonna reuse some of it. It's gonna get shortened. We're gonna take 1.5 inches off of that. We're gonna take, I'm not sure the measurement here, but I want a 1/2 inch left inside here. So 1/2 inch will go inside that, and then the rest of it, 1 inch, will go inside of here. And that'll get us the EPS side, and then the other side should just slip right onto the S550 steering shaft. All right, so this hole's been milled out. This is just the end of the shaft that I cut off, some extra piece. It's gonna get dropped down in there. We're gonna plug weld that hole. This is gonna go over top. That's gonna get welded. And then this end will slip onto that shaft. And then the other end, I think I'm just gonna weld it on. So we'll have this to that coupler, and then this side will just slip on and off that EPS shaft. Alright, I gotta figure out a good way to make sure that this is straight. A lot of wobble on that. I probably could have machined this down some, so that way it'd be a nice tight fit all the way around, but yeah, I didn't do that. I don't know, that looks pretty good to me. Pretty close. It's so hard to tell with tubes. I hate trying to line tubes up. I'm never good at it. If that breaks, I'd be really, really surprised. So just to make more room, I have to shorten this shaft some more. So I'm gonna cut it down to here. This will get slipped on. Pretty much like that. Past that point, so it'll end up about right there. And then we're gonna weld this spot. Alright, I threw it on real quick just to make sure everything would fit and all the mounting holes would still line up and, you know, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So we got a little bit of spline sticking out here. So this entire EPS assembly is going to have to come forward some, which we have tons of room on the other side of the firewall where it needs to come back and actually get cut off and everything. So I just wanted to make sure that where I wanted it, everything was still going to line up and spin, which it spins pretty freely. Yeah, so that's basically it. I just need to move it up a little bit more. So I'm going to take a hammer to the other side and kind of force everything this way and see how much I can get out of it. And then we'll cut the excess off on the other side. And then we'll weld up this too. So this is how much I have sticking out on this side. It's supposed to be up against the firewall, so we're going to have to cut and move all that back. No big deal. Alright, so I need to cut this down to that mark right there. And then we need to take the bearing out, move it down to here, and then we could either tack it in place, or we could smash in the metal on the top, just like they have it here. I feel like I'd almost trust a tack more than I would that. I don't know what's stopping this from dropping down. I guess it's just perfect tolerance for that bearing to sit in here, I guess. So yeah, we'll go probably put this on the lathe too. And then try to get that bearing out without damaging it. Alright, so here's my plan. I took the dimension from the bottom of this flange to the top of the bearing. I took away 10 millimeters because that's the thickness of the bearing. I got the measurement here. And then I measured off of this flange to the end of this shaft where that lip is at, because that'll seat on the bottom of that bearing. And then just marked off where I need to cut at. So it ended up being right there. We need to take off this part of the shaft, lathe down this part, and then it should slip inside here, and then we can weld it. Voila. Alright. Time to weld. I'm just going to tack it for now. Let's throw it together, reassemble the EPS, put it in the car, make sure that this length is where it needs to be, and then we can fully weld it. I think I'm going to tack that in place too right now, actually, now that I think about it. There we go. So everything's shortened. Splines go all the way through the joint. I probably could have made the tube a little bit longer. You could see some light through the bottom of that. Not a big deal though. We'll just probably weld that up afterwards. And then on this side, this is pretty much perfect. So now all we need to do is weld that completely up, and then we have the other shaft on the output side of this. And then that's it. I think I might change the mounting holes for this column over here and move it over a hair and up, just to take some tension off of this. It's not perfectly aligned. I'd like to get as close as possible. I don't think it's too big of a deal if I don't, but I want to say it's slightly flexing the firewall right now, and if I can relieve some of that tension, I might as well do that. I'm gonna weld the top part of this in 4 different spots. That way, if I ever have to change this down the road, I'll just have to cut off specific areas. 4 spots instead of the entire tube. I don't think it's gonna go anywhere. I'm gonna turn it up hot, really try to melt it in those 4 spots. So yeah, I don't really see it breaking just from like twisting. I mean, there's no other force. You know, it shouldn't really be under tension at all. We're just stopping the shaft from spinning inside of this joint. So I don't really see it needing to be a very heavy weld. So hopefully I'm not wrong about that. We'll find out. So this firewall bracket right here, we're actually going to move this over and up a little bit just to take tension off the firewall because of the angle of the steering wheel and like the assembly that this EPS is going to attach to. It just puts too much tension on it. This hole is actually big enough to where it could be moved over and I don't even have to modify that. Everything will still slide in here. We're just going to be moving the bolt holes on this. If for some reason it ends up being like way on the outside of the plate, probably just going to get a new plate and make new holes for it. Alright, I got one hole drilled out and I have it mounted just by that one hole, just to make it easier to locate the rest of these holes. So what I'm doing is making a crosshair. So these little marks up and down, so I got one there and one on the top. I'm just making a crosshair that'll line up exactly where that hole is at. So from the center of that hole I made a line down, center of the hole I made a line to the side, I marked it on the plate, and I'm going to cross those lines together and that'll give me my center point where I need to drill. So I just crossed the lines over, got my center point, now I can drill it out. Alright, so I got everything hooked up, everything is modified. I moved the EPS over a little bit, or that mount that was on that firewall that EPS slides into. So we moved it over just a hair. I didn't even measure it, I just kind of like threw a mark over, and I pretty much just lined it up against the side of this. Yeah, so at the edge of this, I just moved it over as far as I could and half a hole up, and I think it's pretty much perfect. It's very close to being straight, and I mean, if it's not, the little bit of tolerance is going to be taken up by this joint right here, and I mean, you can look at it right now and it looks pretty straight. So that's basically it. That's completely done. The only thing I need to do is decide how I want to finish that plate there. If I just want to cut that off and transfer the holes over to another one, and you know, maybe use like a thicker plate and make it wider or something like that. I don't know. I haven't decided yet. My main worry was just getting this connected and then finished essentially to the point to where it'd be functional, so I know that it works. This is something, when I bought the car, one of those things where I was like, I have no idea if I'm going to be able to get this to work, and right now it seems like it's going to work. Everything up here in the front looks great. There is down at this joint, if I can zoom in, it is perfectly at the end of that joint. I couldn't have lined that up any better. So with it where it's at right now, it doesn't touch anything, it doesn't touch the exhaust. And then down here, it is on the rack as far down as it can go. So everything lines up. I'm gonna say perfect. It seems like everything lines up perfect. So I got this modified. This is that mount that goes on the firewall where the EPS slides into. I welded up those holes, ground them down, and I threw some paint on it. One thing I did not show was a while back, I actually bent this bracket to be able to angle the shaft up of that EPS further. And then I printed a ASA 3D printed piece that just fills that gap. So that way, when it bolts up to the firewall, it has something that it can evenly compress up against. Now that my holes have been moved over, I have to modify my original 3D printed piece, move the holes over in that file, reprint it, and then we can bolt this back up to the firewall. EPS is finally bolted back up to the firewall. This is with that bracket slightly modified to the left and then up just a hair. So that's basically it for this project. There's not much more I can do other than wiring it in. I did add the EPS controller to the car, have this mounted up right now where I like it. I'm not going to wire anything right now. I have to decide whether I want to run it into the S550 harness or run a dedicated power source to anything external, non-S550 related, such as a line lock or this EPS unit or, lights or, something separate that has nothing to do with the S550 stuff. I kind of want to leave it unmodified to an extent, other than what we're doing for just modifying it to get to fit the car, run the engine and all that stuff. Anything external, I don't want something causing RFI issues or, something that it would be difficult to trace down on the road when it's easy enough now to just run a power source dedicated to all the external stuff. So yeah, that's basically it for now. And yeah, I was really nervous about this one in a way when I bought all this stuff, especially with this unit being $1,200 or more. It's very expensive, and to cut it up and not really know whether or not I could get it to work is yeah, it's nerve-wracking. It's a lot of money to play with.